we could wait for leaders to have an epiphany and everyone could do this, but I'll be gone off this planet before then. Or we could, with Say It Skillfully, really empower people, I call it from CEO to summer intern, to find our authentic voices, to learn how and when best to use them with confidence, with clarity, with impact. And beyond the impact you can have at work and as a company, how people can do amazing work together at your own individual sense, like your own self, like your communication is how other people perceive you.
Welcome to the Seismic Shift podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Johnston. This is the podcast where we dive into the seismic shifts that are shaking up the way that you work and the way that you live. And today's guest is the one and only Molly Tschang, who just wrote a book with Marshall Goldsmith, which is super exciting. It is out into the world. And what's really cool is so much of what Molly does and talks about is what I also believe in. And for those listeners who tune in to the Seismic Shift podcast, I believe it is all about, right, how to say it skillfully, how to communicate authentically, how to come together and truly connect at a deeper level, how to speak up, how to advocate. And so she's going to give you fantastic advice today. So stick around to learn from the Molly, the expert, the Molly. And Molly, welcome.
Michelle, it is a pleasure to be with you, and I am grateful for the opportunity, and a shout out to our dear Marshall for the fact that we even know each other.
Totally. Yes. Thank you, Marshall. And so you had shared on a call that I was on, I've known you for a couple of years and I never heard your story. And so much of, I believe, about connection is you have to connect with yourself first and really. And so I would love for you to share your story with our listeners.
Well, we could go on and on, but in a nutshell, I think I'm a very unlikely person to have been at the helm now of Say It Skillfully because my parents are from overseas and I didn't speak English until I was 5 and really, really shy and unbelievably unskillful for a big chunk of my life. And we grew up in upstate New York, which we loved. I have 2 sisters. My mom and my dad were the first in their families to kind of immigrate. And it wasn't as if people were mean to us, but you know, kids can be mean. And you grow up in a world where you just desperately want to fit in. And there was one Black, one Korean, and one Chinese family. That was us. So I just remember really, really being very overwhelmed with just, I wanted to fit in, whatever we could possibly do. And one of the things that worked for us is we were pretty smart. We were pretty athletic. We did gymnastics, we played instruments, we played violin and all. And so our ability to just do things that other kids couldn't do. And I said this to Sandy Young. He's like, wow. It was almost like a defense mechanism because people leave you alone. Like you're doing things that they can't do. You're like, you must be okay, right? Because you're in some other league. And that was a bit of a strategy, I think, for us. But it was really great. And I have to say, my mom and dad, and thank bless they're still with us, really, we just had great role models. And I didn't realize till going to college or afterwards how lucky we were. I mean, really, genuinely, a fair amount of naivete is what I was surrounded by. I think my naivety actually has served me quite well through my professional career, to be honest with you. But it was great. And I do have to say, I remember sophomore year of high school, just to spite my mom, and this is like the meanest thing ever. She's like, oh, what do you think you want to be when you grow up, sort of question. And I say to her, well, I probably will be a secretary. Nothing against secretaries at all. But if my mother was holding a pot of ravioli and I thought she was going to drop the entire pot of ravioli on the ground, because they did not, that was not their plan for us. But I ended up going to Cornell undergrad and as a chemical engineer. And funny story, I loved science and math and was decently good at science and math. But I went to the library and I was looking up careers and I really wanted to be Jacques Cousteau. Really wanted to be a marine biologist, and not that I even love swimming that much, but I really loved Jacques Cousteau. But the books showed that, the marine biologist was like $15,000 a year and the chemical engineer was like $30,000 a year. And I was like, well, I obviously can't be a starving marine biologist. So I ended up going into the engineering side, which of course is really great for my parents. I just had a killer time. I got to college. And it's first child, you're kind of stressing yourself out. You feel like you have to get all A's and you feel like you have to learn everything. And I literally was transferring out of school, the end of the first semester, because I thought, I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. It's too hard. And then magically I joined a sorority and life literally got better immediately. And it was just that idea of being around other people who are not in my major, but also just kind of being able to step back and take pressure off. And so much, you talk about getting to know yourself for who you really are. When it's all kind of hard when you're coming through, you're like, you really don't know who you're comparing to. And at some point you start to realize that you're comparing to yourself and you need to figure out what's right for you and all that. So that is a decades long journey, but I do have to say, thank God for the girls at Cornell for keeping me there. And I also was going to go into process engineering out of school. And we were lucky at the time where it wasn't a big deal, I think, to have jobs. It was a very good economy, especially for engineers. And I don't know, somehow I must have dropped a resume in a circular file in IBM, literally a month before graduation. And 10 of us lived on the third floor of a bar and no one ever answered the phone. So somehow the phone rings, ring, ring, ring. Molly there. I'm like, oh, this is she. Oh, this is IBM. I'm like, hi. And so they're like, blah, 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 interested if you'd like to talk to us. I say, well, I'll be very honest with you. And this is my first skillful moment. I have already accepted a job. Everyone had accepted jobs for like 7 months, right? But I'd be happy to, interested in hearing what you have to say. Can you fly to Armonk? So of course I jet to Armonk. And, you're sitting in the IBM corporate office. Remember, we had these old school Indian professors. Everyone was disheveled and unkempt. This woman, Mickey Knapp, she's sitting there. She's got the pearls in. She's got the whole IBM suit or whatever. No idea what she said. I'm like, this is really cool. This whole deck thing. So I get back and I decided it was 2/3 the salary, but I decided to do it because I think I'll be more valuable after 2 years of IBM than engineering. Now, I would have loved Chevron. It would have been amazing. But just to give you an idea that was this defining moment. So I'm so jazzed. I have this offer for 2/3 the salary. And I call my mom and dad. Mom, Dad, guess what? They're like, what? I'm going to go to IBM. It was like that. I was like, hello? Hello? I thought the phone went dead. They were probably like this, gasping for air. They're like, what did she just do? Right? I mean, they're like, IBM. Why would you go to IBM? You were an engineer at Chevron. You should do that. So anyways, that started the whole career. It was a great ride. I ended up going after IBM and business school to Deloitte Consulting, which was fabulous. And I'm a huge fan of that experience for people. You may not be a career consultant, but that ability to dive in, to make friends, figure out the task, and all the traveling at a young age was super fun. And I feel very lucky. I think I just want to say this for the young people that are in the workforce, Michelle. I loved work. Work was great. Going to work with people in offices, like that was just the best. And I really want people to have that experience because that's how you learn. You kind of osmosis through watching people or whatever. So the idea of being home and remote on a computer as a young person just seems like super hard. So I really hope that people can get out there and, rub shoulders and, hit elbows with people. Cause I think weird job opportunities come up that way and friends come up that way. So then what? So then I'm in consulting and I'm a little traveling all the time is a little bit old for me. And these friends call, they're like, Molly. I'm like, what? Where are you? We're in the desert. I'm like, we're in Palm Desert, California. And they had met a gentleman, Dick Heckman, who sadly has since passed, but he was consolidating the water treatment business, which is all chemical engineering. And he was pulling together a whole bunch of young MBA types who would just work their butt off and consolidating the industry, literally. And so they were like, you got to come. And I was like, okay. So we were on the Amex. We went to the New York Stock Exchange. I've been on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, it was just a crazy ride. I have always been very impassioned by what I did. And we were creating this one-stop shop for water treatment, clean water and wastewater. It was just like the best ever. You're running around the world and you're like integrating companies. So not the deal side. I've never done the deal side, but the people part, which is if you've done any deals. I mean, I've integrated over 80 acquisitions. It's all about getting people to get along and to be able to, communicate and, work with leaders through a significant change. And I did that for 4 years there. It was amazing. And then I know what burnout is like. No one made me work for 4 years straight, but I'm a little bit wired that way. So I was kind of go, 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 go. And then I said, I need to take some time to get to know me. And as much as I am so just indebted to Dick Heckman and all I learned, he was a little bit of a screamer. So you work for someone who's screaming at everybody, and then you turn around and you're screaming at everybody. And you're like, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. So it was a good chance to kind of decompress, get to know myself, figure out who I wanted to be. I'd never had my driver's license and my address and my checkbook actually have the same address, right? That was like never before that happened. And so I took some time down. I ended up, Harvard has a career seminar series called In Transition. It's a great book that I did because I'm a process chemical engineering geek. And so I went through, we do written on your tombstone, but this whole idea, which is the seismic shift, you got to get to know yourself. And you got to get to know yourself. And that includes all the stuff that you're not that happy that you did, that you're sort of mortified that you did, that is not what you would do again, but you did it. And getting whole with that and coming to grips with that. And then understanding, what do I like? What don't I like? What am I good at? What am I not that good at? That whole thing is really, to me, should be hopefully a very energizing process. And this little book created a little framework for me to do so. And believe it or not, I end up smack dab in the middle of the Cisco Systems business development group. And people have to know, at the time, that was the job in Silicon Valley. Yes. Cisco BD. And so I ended up, one of the folks who had that up the group was from Cornell. And I want to tell people about perseverance. So I would call him up, Molly. Oh, I'm really busy, click. Call me back in, a week, click. So I probably did this game with him easily 7 phone calls. Someone else might have said, oh, woe is me. He doesn't want to talk to me. I'm not good enough. I'm like, oh, no. I just kept calling back. And finally, one day, Molly, now is a great time. It was like music to my ears. So I do want to tell folks, if you really are passionate about something, I also gave myself credit because I didn't make up the story that he didn't want to talk to me or what have you. So I stuck with that. Landed smack dab in the middle of that group. In the heyday, literally the entire team was out doing a new deal. And they're like, well, we didn't think you should come with us because you didn't have a computer. Like, what were you going to do? I'm like, okay, great. I'll stay here in San Jose and just fill out paperwork. But it was just the dreamiest time. I have to tell you that Cisco in the heyday was just the best ever. And I'm very grateful for the people that I met there, all the experiences that we had. It was truly, truly extraordinary. And in hindsight, when you have people who are the best or among the best at what they do, they say they do what they said they're going to do, and you fundamentally trust them, you can fly. And you can fly with 40 and 50,000 people. I mean, it was really amazing. So I've heard people say, well, you have to earn trust. Trust has to be heard. It takes time. Not really. And at the highest performing teams, you don't have that time. So if you bring in the right people and you set up the right container for how people move through space, can be open about what we really think we need to do, are all about serving the whole, not Molly making herself look better than Michelle, you have an incredible opportunity to make a difference. And I just want everyone to have it because it is like the best thing ever when you really have fundamental trust. Of course, people are making mistakes, but we're making new ones. We're learning from them and we're growing. We're better for them. So I'm so grateful for US Filter and for Cisco for just epic work experiences. And at Cisco, I had the chance to run a nonprofit. Who gets to do that? They had
in Cisco.
Yeah, Cisco. They had this secondment program. Tayu, unbelievable. Their philanthropy group wanted to second executives from the company to be part of nonprofits, which was the most life-changing thing for me, Michelle, because I had not had a chance to engage with philanthropy. In fact, to set that up, I had somehow got involved with Save the Children. That Donovan Cook was the head of development. So we just got to be kind of buddy-buddy. And it was interesting to me because the nonprofits, what we thought was so basic in business in terms of sales or marketing or operational work, they're like, wow, this is so amazing. So we just kind of got going. And he at one point says, we're doing an empowering women and girls delegation to Ethiopia and Uganda. Do you want to go? And of course I'm like, I'm in. And you got an inside look at development programs around the world. And so in order to go, you had to pay your own way, of course, but you had to raise $10,000. So Molly's donor base alone raises $70,000. We built like 2.5 schools, just my donor base alone. I said to myself, if I don't even go on this trip, I've gotten so much out of it. But that ability, so I was like, they said, you got to raise money. I said, well, help me understand what this, if someone gives me $300, like what does that buy? Or if they give me $5,000, what does it buy? And apparently Donovan had to go to Save the Children corporate. And they were like, well, why does she want to know that? He's like, well, it seemed like a good question to me. We're not saying your money exactly goes to buy these pencils and pay it, but it does give people an idea of how far a relatively modest amount of money can go in some of these development projects. So I got that all ginned up, a little form, and my donor base, like $70,000. I mean, it was just insane. And then I got overseas, and I can understand from the UN in New York or the World Bank in DC, it's not so easy to imagine what it's really like on the ground over there, trying to create change, make things work, etc. So very humbling, very eye-opening. I came back and I remember, because at Cisco at the time, people had stock options. Is there a cube by the window? People are, why is my cube not by the window? I'm like, your cube by the window? Who cares whether you have food and water and shelter? Like, what's up with that?
Right.
So I just have to say I was indebted to that experience. It was really, you can tell I'm so smiley. I mean, shout out to all my colleagues from the company. We just had like the best time ever. I ended, the times got a little bit tough. I got into the strategic consulting group that had been a ton of fun because there was no real revenue responsibility. But then things tightened up a little bit. I, along the way, had a mentor who said to me, I think you'll like this. And I think if there's one thing I've done really well, it's like, if someone I really respect says, I think you should do something, I don't really ask. I'm like, okay, I better go do it. And so I took this organization and relationship systems coaching program. I wasn't trying to be a coach, right? But this program, Michelle, helped me be a better me. It helped Molly get in really good relationship with Molly, which is, of course, my job and your job. Like, other people can't do that for us. So I'm eternally grateful for these years that I spent just unpacking this notion, which underpins the whole Say It Skillfully framework, by the way. And so I do this project. I come back and I'm just on fire because obviously the relationship, the connection amongst people is what underpins the highest performance. It's not the different tasks that we do. I know everybody knows that. However, you would not necessarily know that by how we operate at work. And so I realized we had a lot of great leaders. We go to these offsites, but people weren't really connecting as people. And the leaders, by the way, wanted everyone else to work like a team. And they were doing not really a very good job of that. Like, sorry, we know that you hate her or he hates him. And then we're running around here trying to make sure that we don't, get considered roadkill, but we want to be able to do great work. So I just we want to help these people embrace the vulnerability. That is a must for trust. Okay. Vulnerability is a must for trust. Like, you say that to executives and no one wants to be vulnerable. I mean, you'd rather clean toilets. And I wrote that in the book. So that was really great to just have a chance to take what I learned, synthesize it into a model that I thought the corporate world could head fake into being real. And if you don't have a management team that can say it like it is and put it out there and support each other's success, help each other to grow, don't expect the rest of the company, don't expect the business to grow. And so I really feel very strongly all that culture starts right at the top, Michelle. And so I ended up leaving Cisco, it must be 11 years now, and started my own consultancy to help senior management win as one.
That's when it started.
That's when it started.
I was wondering when this all started, because you started a consulting firm, you started a podcast, you started to coach, and then you wrote a book. So this has all happened in the last 11 years?
Well, so it's even shorter than that. So I do my consulting, which is great. I started out with a private equity firm. People are like, what do you mean private equity? I said, look at it. If they get that, if our management teams work together, we make more money faster, that's great. I mean, that's a great thesis, right? That management teams work better together, we make more money. Great. So I'm cruising, and then I meet Marshall, I don't know, what was it, 7, 8 years ago? I'm telling you, thanks to Dan Neidich, my former real estate guru in New York, because he sold both of us our apartments. And so I meet Marshall, and like you met him, he changed my life forever. And so I'm a private person. I don't do social media. That's not what I do. But shout out to Bruce Kazanoff, who I met through the group. Bruce is like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Just post it. So I did this video, 90-second clip of a junior person speaking up in a room full of management, like the most scary thing ever in the world. And so I thought, 10 people maybe will watch this video. And then ultimately 36,000 people watched. And so I ended up doing a video a week for a year, took over my life. I was just on a mission from above because I could tell, having been in many corporate environments, people are not saying what they think needs to be said, right? They have fear. They're worried of being wrong. They don't want to look bad. They want to offend other people. All legit. But it is the worst thing. And you cannot do your best work, and you can't do your best work together if everyone doesn't feel safe. They can put it out there in service to the whole. And I think this is a really important point. It isn't about, again, me saying something so I look amazing and everyone else looks horrible. It's about, what do I truly think would help the whole? I may be wrong, okay? But the intention of putting something out there, I know everyone says this. I think I'm going to put this out here because I just want us to think about it. Maybe there's something there that we can learn. So helping people find their voices and using them in a way where they were understood the way they want to be so that we could do our best work together. That is how this whole Say It Skillfully thing came to be. And we all know the dirty little secret is, because we're not taught this, it's our most life-changing skill and we're not taught it, we have some leaders, some super senior leaders, not as skillful perhaps as we might like. They're still good people. They're still super experienced, super expertise, but they may not be able to create the space for their people to tell it like it is. All the leaders you and I know, oh yeah, we have an open door policy. I mean, who has a closed door policy? No one has a closed door policy. If you ask the folks in the company, do they feel like they can really put whatever they think they need to put out there? Not exactly, right? Because of things that leaders may do that they're unaware of, that really don't make it as safe as we would like. So we could wait for leaders to have an epiphany and everyone could do this, but I'll be gone off this planet before then. Or we could, with Say It Skillfully, really empower people, I call it from CEO to summer intern, to find our authentic voices, to learn how and when best to use them with confidence, with clarity, with impact. And beyond the impact you can have at work and as a company, how people can do amazing work together, at your own individual sense, like your own self, like your communication is how other people perceive you. And so your ability to authentically, genuinely, effectively communicate is how people create their impression of us. And it's so empowering. It is like the best thing ever. So it kills me that we're not taught this. And that's why I started this whole thing. Because now the book is out there, packaging it up. We've got a program. I've got the podcast to give examples. It's a journey, but I'm telling you, I sent a cold email to CEO of a very, very large grocery chain, very well known. And she got the book and she read it and she loves it. And she put me in touch with the head of their leadership development. So I know that there's an appetite of senior leaders out there who are like, I get it. I'm paying a fortune for my payroll, my number one expense. I'm not getting full value. And I'm not getting full value not because people aren't working hard, but because people don't feel like they can say it like it is. And I can do something about that. And for those leaders, I'm here for you, okay? Because I know that not only will your people feel more fulfilled and you'll do better work, it is a lot easier to lead. It is a lot easier to lead when you have that kind
my
of
goodness.
environment.
So you started the videos and they took off. And
The
you
videos
realized,
went crazy.
okay.
Yes. And then Voice America, shout out Randall Librero, calls me. This is like, do you want to have your own radio show? I'm like, yes, I want to have I don't even know what that means. What do you mean have your own radio show? So then I have my own radio show, and then they turned into a podcast. And then we had these amazing people in our group, thanks to Marshall, who've been on the show. And so what I learned, and I reverse engineered the model from all these folks, is the most skillful people that I thought, the ones I really resonated with, I could tell they were really whole with who they were. They were speaking up in service to the other person or to the group. And it was that simple. And so that's why when I say 80% of effective communication starts here within, it's 80% me. My emotions, my biases, my sense, like, am I worried about, is that about me, or am I really about serving the group? And if you can get whole and not worry about yourself, which takes that work that we talked about, the do the work part, I call it, you got to kind of get whole on that, right? If you're going to be like, oh, I'm worried that they're going to think you're worried that they're going to think you're a bad person for trying to help the company, I'm not really following that. Does that make sense? If you really are, and this feedback, we all know that we need each other's help to grow. And if people don't care enough to tell us the things that we are inadvertently doing, we will never learn. So that idea, you have a chance to give feedback or feed forward and help someone grow. Oh my God, how amazing is that? So it's the different frame. Like, what? I said, you're not beating down, telling how bad people are. You're saying, I know you're trying really hard. I see something that could really help you be even more amazing. Can we talk about it? Right? How different a tone does that change for these kind of interactions? So I just, you can tell I'm like on fire about it. It's made a huge difference in my life. I have seen firsthand people just spread their wings and fly, and they are unstoppable. Unstoppable.
So is that what you're doing now? You have your podcast where you got to give advice and interview amazing people. You just wrote this book, and then you have programming. You go into companies and then you help people. You take them through this program. Is that where the majority of your time is spent now?
It's all over the place. I have a nice, I call it portfolio for all the people who want to create their jobs, but I have the consultancy where you work with senior management teams to win as one, right? That's a whole separate team coaching, which I love. I'm on a couple boards of companies, which I love doing that. And then Say It Skillfully, I would say, it's almost like, I feel like it's a top-down, meets bottom-up theory of change. If you want sustained, successful change, we need everybody on board. And so it's super fun to work with management teams. I think Say It Skillfully is a broader remit because, and again, I get that a lot of folks are like, whatever, we don't really care about what everyone says. That's okay. But there's a meaningful minority of people who I would say put themselves in the put people first category, who want to harness the full diversity of people, places, ideas, and experiences. And if people don't feel like they can speak up, you'll never get that.
You're absolutely right. And one of the things you said it is really all about connection. You said lots of companies and leaders like to convince themselves that it's about the tasks. But one of your takeaways after working for IBM and then the clean water and then Cisco is that it's all about connection. Can you talk to us more about that? Because you are preaching to the choir, girl.
Yeah.
That is what I love.
Yeah. So the connection starts with our own selves. And are we connected with ourselves? And as Marshall has told us, it's a new me every day. It's a new Molly, new Michelle every single day. So this is an ongoing journey. But there are plateaus where you start to kind of have these epiphanies about ourselves, and you start to drive who do you want to be. And I think when you're earlier in your career, you're looking around like, that looks good, I like that, I don't like that. So there's a lot of comparison. But I think at some point you start to feel grounded in the person that I need to be, that I'll feel good about to be my best self and do my best work. And so I think that connection part within is fundamental. Because if we're insecure with ourselves, and we all have insecurities, by the way, so let's just normalize that. But if that becomes overwhelming, it's very hard to put others. It's really hard to think about what someone else really needs if our own needs really don't feel met. I mean, it's just the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So you feel like you're good, and okay, and I can really not think of what is Michelle's emotional experience? What's going on for her? Can I truly empathize with her emotional experience? Which means not that I think I'm coming across as respectful for her, but she feels that I'm respecting her. Does that make sense? So this is this connecting thing, because when you connect as human beings, not as developer and project manager, human beings, that opens the door for communication, right?
Yes.
And I think that's really where it all starts.
Yes. So you and I talk about, right, we talk about trust. You and I talk about psychological safety and how to create the environment where people can speak up. And I was just speaking to an executive team this week, and they're all about, they were all obviously the leaders, we want our people to trust us. And a recent article I read said it beautifully, that employees trust their leaders when they think their leaders get them. And the only way for leaders to show your employees that you get them is to connect and to spend time asking questions about them and going deeper, right? And not just focusing on task, but focusing on you as a human. And yes, it does take time. And it's the opposite of just going and blowing task. It's like, okay, let's have a one-on-one, and I don't even know your story. I want to know more about you, Molly. And I'll tell you about me. Let's connect. And then all of a sudden you have trust. And then that trust drives that engagement and that productivity and that risk-taking and speaking up, everything that you're talking about. So I think we have solved the chicken or the egg.
Well, yeah, I'm with you 1,000%. What I want to say to folks listening is they're like, well, my boss doesn't want to hear it. She'll never change. Okay, so this is the deal. And I'm very big on this. If you really are at a place where you don't think people want to hear what you have to say, or you've seen how when people speak up, they're gone tomorrow, okay? which I really hope no one is in that environment. But if you are, it's not about being more skillful. It's not being seismic shifty. It's about, why are you there? And I'm really serious about this because we all have choices. You need to find places that deserve you. If you're going to work your butt off, I work my butt off, you work your butt off, right? We want to find places that deserve us. And so that's on you. That is on you. And they are out there. Now, it may take some work, but I will guarantee you there are amazing leaders, Michelle and I know them, who really do want you to spread your wings and fly. And you want to be at one of those places. So that's the first thing, is that each individual, I think, needs to own it. So in that vein, does your, oh, he doesn't want to hear it. I'm like, does your VP wake up and say, oh my God, I'm going to make it so scary today. No one tells me what I need to hear. No, they do not. That said, they need your help because they do not realize the ways that they make it hard for people to tell it like it is. And someone needs to care enough to say, hey, Fred, can we sit down? You can fire me. I got that. I'm okay with that. I see something going on that I don't think you're aware of. And I would love for us to be able to talk about it because I think it's going to help you look a lot better and it's going to help us do a lot better work for you. Okay. So if that is not something if you really feel your leader isn't open to that, and I get that is out there, then don't bother and then think about where you want to go. Because, listen, I think it's a real privilege to work. Having been to this Africa thing, they would kill to have the jobs we have, people. It's amazing, the opportunities that we have to make a difference, to influence, to grow, to create something far bigger than any one of us would ever be. I mean, that is so fun. Super fun.
I love your passion and enthusiasm. And I'm actually going to ask Carla after we're done with our interview, this episode, if I can play it for my students tonight, because I teach my leadership class tonight. And I think that every nugget that you've shared, Molly, is so applicable, to these graduating seniors that are trying to figure out who they are. And I'm making them go deep with vulnerability and imperfection in their emotions. And the majority of the class are male baseball players. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're making me do this. And I said, I promise you will be happy that you did this work now, in order to figure out their strengths, who they are, so they can figure out a best company, and then how to speak up. Because a lot of kids these days, they're 21, are not speaking up and you had mentioned in your book, there are reasons why: fear of fitting in, fear of sticking out, fear of not belonging. It really stems from fear. And so I want to ask two more questions and we'll close it out. Number one, I want to know what seismic shifts you're seeing in leadership. And number two, I want you to give and think about anybody who's listening to this, 3 pieces of advice for how to say it skillfully, because your book is full of great advice. So seismic shifts, great advice.
So I think seismic shifts, I think you're starting to see leaders who really want to lead. I mean, I think a lot of people are following, and I get that. But the ones who are leading when it's not convenient, when something's going on, potentially out of DC, that is like, oh my gosh, no more diversity programs. I'm like, I don't know. Do you believe that is something that is the right thing to do? I mean, how do you figure out a way to pursue what you think is right, within some boundaries? And I think that takes real leadership. And I think you're starting to see people realize, you know what, darn it, if I don't do it at all levels, people, I'm talking all levels, if I don't do it, if I don't say something, who's going to come save the day? We are here to save the day, people. So I think that's what I want to offer. One quick thing on the psychological safety, which obviously is essential, but I consider it way overrated. Oh, it's not safe here. So your question is, do people want to make it not safe? Because if they really want to make it not safe, then you got to go. But most of the times, no one wants to make it not safe. Your job is to say, you know what? I know you want it to be safe for us. I'm not feeling it because of this. Here's what I would love to have happen for me to be my best self. Okay. And with the genuine sense of wanting it to be better for the whole, that is going to fly. When people know you care and you want to help things be better, and it's not just all about me, it goes well. It really does. Now, it takes courage, but I'm telling you, this is where you have to decide, how much do I value myself? How much do I value myself? And if you value yourself, you sit down, you're like, you know what, darn it, that Molly girl is right. I need to find a way to bring this up that shows that I want it to be serving the whole, that I may not be right, but I would love for us to consider this, right? If everyone does that one step, oh my God, we are miles ahead. And I just want to empower every single person out there. I have seen folks, individual contributors, right, who all of a sudden are like on fire, right? Able to be contributing, pointing things out in a way that they never gave themselves credit for. And it is just the best, right?
I
You work
love
really hard.
how you say serving the whole, because we tend to, as humans, really go inward and pretty self-centered, right? And you're thinking about yourself the whole time and how you look and how you sound and how you're positioning and how's it going to work out? How's it going to play out? And yet I love your advice, and it's great for all of our listeners. If you can articulate and make sure that people know that you really are serving for the whole, it's all about the organization, or what's best for the patients. If you're in healthcare, what's best for the
Yes.
customers. It's really keeping your eye on the ball of what's best in a more holistic sense rather than what's best for me. And that's what's going to get you far.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, that takes some courage, because you're not worried about me, right? And so it isn't. And I use this head count every company end of the year. There's a big head count war, because nobody doesn't want more head count. And so you have these duke it out for head count. Let's just say marketing wins, they do a better pitch. But if you had an accurate shared reality, right, you would know that really development needed the head count, right? So, but marketing did a better pitch, so they win the battle, but the company loses the war. And what we want to have happen is say, hey, let us have an accurate shared reality, but what do we really need? We actually need more developers. We love the fact we're celebrating that marketing was willing to let go of 2 headcounts so that we could put them in development. So it wasn't a win-lose, it's a win-win. And I just want folks to realize you have an ability to help people feel that way, even though they may be, if you will, losing in a transaction, you might call it. But when you think about the whole, are we net better? Because if we're net better, everybody wins. But we have to be able to not have the ego part go in. And listen, ego is not necessarily bad. It's important to have ego, because ego makes us want to do good work. And so I don't want to make that a bad thing. But it is about being able to flow through some of the emotions and starting with ourselves. And if you model it as a leader, whether you are the leader or whether you're coming up through the ranks, and people see that, that's distinctive. And I think that's, think about a seismic shift. That's what I'd like to encourage more of.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, one final piece of advice for our listeners, how they can say it skillfully.
So people have said to me after they've gone through and just the book is a fast read, the audiobook people love too. But at the end of the day, it actually isn't the perfect words said the perfect way. The most important thing is, how do you show up? Do you genuinely hold the energy of heart, of partnership, of collaboration, of vulnerability, of empathy? So you just can't make that up. You have to say, you know what, I have to feel that. And you may have just come from a meeting and you're super angry because that guy really ticked you off, literally. But you have to be able to say, whoosh, I got to let angry Molly go. I have to inhale heartful Molly, because this next conversation needs me to show a lot of heart for me to be able to best create the space for the work. So being able to really, really own our energy, to authentically show up in that way, is what best serves the work and what makes the most difference. And when people feel that in you, you'll notice the impact, a very different reaction to you. So that's what I would offer folks.
That is, bam, that's a mic drop moment for sure. It all goes back to the energy. That's my last chapter, is shift your energy, because even on a Zoom call, it's palpable. And you're right. And that takes really managing your emotions. You're absolutely right, to go from one meeting that really ticked you off to all of a sudden having to inspire the marketing team. If you're the leader, and that's on you, and figuring out how to pivot, how to put time in between your meetings to allow you to go from one emotional state to the next emotional state. All of that is so important for leaders, and how we connect with others is first how we connect with ourselves. Thank you so much, Molly Tschang.
Thank you.
Absolutely delightful. And for all of you listening, Say It Skillfully is available on Amazon, and she wrote it with Marshall Goldsmith, and just thrilled for you and your success, Molly.
Thank you. Cheering for you and all of you. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you for the generous support of Loyola University New Orleans with the Seismic Shift podcast. Thank you for joining us on the Seismic Shift. And before you go, can I ask one favor of you? Do you mind sharing today's episode with a leader you know? The power of this conversation is found in your using it and sharing it to create real connection in your life. Lastly, I'd like to thank Loyola University New Orleans for helping bring this content to life.